Hello and welcome back to Aubrey Books and Coffee. Please grab your favorite beverage of choice and join me. So just like before, I'm going through the GoodReads. Only this time in this vlog, instead of it just being the nominees, we actually have the winners. Woo! And so we're going to be starting, of course, with the category of fiction. Now, this one, I didn't have to actually read it because I've already read it and reviewed it more thoroughly for you guys in a previous video at the end of the month. You have to go back and watch for that. But that was The Wedding People. I ended up giving it 4 stars. I really enjoyed the story. I was surprised the twists and turns that it made. And I love that this won in that category. So next category, though, I spun on my wheel. I got horror. And so for that one, it's You Like It Darker by Stephen King. Not my favorite, as we discovered last month and in October, but I'm willing to give it a chance because after all, it was voted and it won. So let's see. So I'm about 25% into You Like It Darker, and it's interesting. The first, because it's obviously a collection of short stories, if you didn't know, and the first story is two talented bastards, because there's an accent, of course, from people from Maine. And it basically has these two friends, and ever since they were little, they have been really close friends, and so every year they like go camping together and stuff. One has always been kind of an aspiring painter, and the other an aspiring writer, and neither one has ever really successfully pursued that career. And they go camping, and something happens to them when they go camping on this one fateful year, and all of a sudden both of them are like crazy famous and crazy wealthy based on their paintings, based on their books. And a lot of family members and people in their town are just kind of curious, like, what happened out there, kind of thing, and like what made such a difference, like what's going on. And so the story was just kind of about that. It wasn't spooky at all. If anything, I would have called it more like sci-fi. So I don't know. I was kind of disappointed by that story, to be honest. And then the second short story was The Fifth Step, which has a guy who's just kind of going to his usual park bench and wants to just sit and read the paper, and he sees a stranger there, and the stranger's like, hey, I'll give you $20 just to let me confess the things that I've done wrong. I'm in AA, and there's different steps to the program, and so I need to now confess to a stranger according to my sobriety coach, and so I need to confess. Would you take $20 for me to confess to you? And so he's just kind of like going through things and stuff. And there's a little bit of a twist at the end, but again, I was not blown away. Again, it was kind of a, kind of thing. So far, not crazy about this book. I'm thinking like 2 stars at this point. All right, so I'm now about 50% into You Like It Darker, and we know I'm not the biggest Stephen King fan, but this was the winner for the horror category. So, and I wanted to see why, because I thought We Used to Live Here should have won, to be honest. And right now I'm still feeling like that. So I'm thinking this is just for the diehard Stephen King fans, and that's why. The next story that we got was Willie the Weirdo, and it's this family, and the boy is a little odd. He likes to watch like lightning bugs die in bottles and stuff. He's like obsessed with death, and he's really close to his grandpa who gets really, really sick. And the ending was just weird. It was just so weird. It's so bizarre. I didn't like it at all. And then the last one that we just now read was Danny Colin's Bad Dream, which was the longest by far. It took up 6 hours in the audiobook, several chapters, obviously. And it wasn't worth it. Basically, Danny Colin is just a normal Joe, and he has a dream, and in the dream, a woman is murdered. He doesn't see the murder happening. He just sees the body, and he sees a dog like tearing it apart and destroying evidence. And so he seeks out to see if it's even real, because he kind of got a view of the location. And then when he finds that it is real, he chases away the dog and like tries to preserve the body and calls 911 to come take care of it. And so of course they assume he's the killer. So it's just kind of that story. And actually it wasn't bad. It was well written. It was interesting. It had me wanting to know what was going on, especially with the female cop. And like, is he really guilty and he's just spinning a really good yarn? Or is it really like, is this a reliable narrator? And it really did happen that way. And so you're left kind of wondering this whole time. And it was really good until the ending. And then I'm like, okay. So again, I still feel this is at a 2-star at 50%. I wouldn't even bother going forward anymore, except that I'm doing this vlog. So for me, and if your tastes typically align with mine, don't waste your time. And I am really surprised that this won in the horror category. I mean, there were lots of other options in there besides my own personal favorite. I am really surprised this won. So I got to the halfway point. The last story that I read was Finn. It had to do with like his bad luck. It was just such a bad story. Like it went literally nowhere. So I'm DNFing. I'm sorry. You know, I hate doing that for vlogs. I hate doing that. I really don't know how this won in the horror category. I really, really don't. My mind is blown. There were several on here that were way better than this. The only thing I can contribute to that is the diehard Stephen King fans who will just like buy Stephen King just for the name and will support Stephen King just for the name, and it doesn't matter the quality of the book. But even my husband who loves Stephen King is like, so yeah, like, no, I'm DNFing here. I went over halfway. I tried. Not for me. So enough said about that. I think I made my opinion very well known. So moving on, the next category is going to be a debut novel. For this one, the one that won was How to End a Love Story. I have read nothing from this author, so I'm excited to see what happens. The debut winner for GoodReads was How to End a Love Story, and I have started it and I'm about 25% into it, and I have to admit it's cute. It's really, really cute. It's sad too, so make sure you look at trigger warnings. Essentially, Helen's sister has passed away, and they argue about why, but it looks like she purposely stepped into traffic, and this young man that they went to high school with, unfortunately, is the one that hit her and she dies. And so obviously Helen and her family hate this young man, and they don't want to accept that it was a suicide. And it's really hard. The family's trying to move on and stuff like that. So then we fast forward, and Helen is now a famous writer, and one of her book series is being made into a movie. And guess who the screenwriter is going to be? That's right, the young man. And so now she has to work with him. So it's already, like, that's in the first 25%. It's already grabbing me, and it's heavy, but it's also light in places enough that it's not bumming me out or dragging me down, and I'm really having a good time. So I finished it. I did not update you guys at the halfway point or 75% because I was in it. Again, I'm not going to give away any spoilers, but obviously there's a romance, and then with every romance there's got to be a moment where there's a betrayal or somebody who just wants out of the relationship just to add the drama, you know, so that at the end they can try to reconcile and stuff. And I will just say, I was not let down. This was really good. It went in a way that made sense, not just adding drama, at least to me, but also was realistic with how people need to heal and things like that. So I really, really enjoyed this one. Again, it had heavy moments, but I really enjoyed it. So I'm giving it a 4-star. I can totally see why as a debut it won. I totally agree with that. Everybody voted very well, and I'm really glad I got to read this. I found a new favorite. I love that. That is so fun. So now I have an author's backlist, a new author's backlist I can make sure to add to my ever-growing wants to reads. The next category is romance, and the winner of that one was Funny Story by Emily Henry. I love that this one won. I gave it 5 stars myself. Way to go, everybody. You voted very well. It is a fabulous story. Highly, highly recommend you all pick it up. The next category is YA fiction, and that is Heartstopper Volume 5. I'm glad that it won. I've actually only read Volume 1 and 2, so I still need to read 3 and 4. So here goes. So pardon the hat, but it is snowing outside again, and it is like literally only 15 degrees. And the library doesn't feel that much warmer. It's really kind of cold in here. So anyway, I am now in Heartstopper Volume 5, about halfway through. And it is so stinking sweet still. I love that we get to see the characters developing their relationship and their growth. I appreciate all the nuances they're doing with mental health in this one. And they had started that with the last one, but they continued in this one. And what they're doing with physical attraction and what to do when your significant other is going to be going off to college, which they call university. Yeah, it's so good. It is really, really so good. I am really enjoying it. I can see why it's the winner for the romance, and I think it's just so sweet. In other news, I did splurge. Shh, don't tell Ryan. I got me a new book sleeve, and so as I'm carrying this back and forth, I'm putting it in my new book sleeve. How cute is that? Isn't that the greatest? It's nice and oversized, so it fits in there perfectly. It was on sale with LitJoy. They have sales periodically, and so for one of the Black Friday, deals they had, that was only $5, you guys. So I'm like, I need that in my life. So anyway, I'm going to continue. I'm going to finish it and let you guys know and hopefully warm up. It is so sweet. Oh my gosh, it is so sweet. And once again, so impactful and has so many good things to say. And I love this whole series. I really do. I don't see me rereading it, and that's the only reason it's not going on my shelves. But I'm going to break my own rule and actually give this one 5 stars. It's still not going to go on my shelf because I'm not going to reread it. But I can't not give it 5 stars. I mean, it was that good. And again, not for children, but it is that good and that deep, and so many important plots brought up. So love this series. Now, that shouldn't have surprised anybody that has seen me review these, that I would, of course, fall absolutely in love with it. The next category is the romantasy category. Of course, Sarah J. Maas won. There were so many good ones in this, including the sleeper Quicksilver that I ended up absolutely adoring as well. For this one, I gave it 5 stars. Of course, it is up on my shelf in a beautiful edition, and I encourage you guys to pick up this whole series if you haven't read it yet. The next one was historical fiction. For that one, I am excited to say the women won. I know nothing about this other than it covers the Vietnam War era, so let's find out. So I've gotten to 25% into the women, and wow. I knew it was going to be like a historical fiction, obviously, but I didn't know what to expect. And we're following a young woman whose brother goes to Vietnam, and so she decides to sign up as a nurse, and that way she can hopefully see him there and help out, make a difference, things like that. And she gets over there, and of course things are not at all what you expect them to be. War rarely is. And so she's just kind of like trying to make friends and losing friends and the blood and the harshness that is this environment. And it is heart-wrenching and it's hard to hear even at 25% into it. But it's beautifully written. It is so well written. So I'm glad I picked this up because I don't think I would have gravitated to it naturally, and it won on Goodreads for a reason. So I am really excited to keep reading and to have my heart torn out and stepped all over. All right, so I am currently 54% into the women. I'm also on sprints, which is so fun. I love getting to share sprints with you all every Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern, so please feel free to join us. 54%, it's still really gut-wrenching to read it. More sad things are happening. Things you would actually kind of expect. This is very realistic. It's reading extremely realistic. I love these women that she served with. I absolutely love these women. They lift each other up. They're there for each other in the most beautiful ways. And that for me is just completely making this story 100%. And the writing is just very easy to read and follow. Very enjoyable, very hard though. This is a very hard topic. So make sure you're in the mood for that. Make sure you're prepared for that. But even talking about it on sprints with all of you, everybody that's read it says the same thing about how amazing it is. So yeah, it's oof, chef's kiss. It's at least going to be a 4-star. I'd be very surprised if it went below a 4-star for me. So yeah, let's keep going. I finished the women this morning. Ignore all of this. Having met soldiers that served during Vietnam era and having served more recently myself in Afghanistan, it really hit a lot. It was heavy, at times hard to read. You really felt the struggles of the main character, not just in a war scenario and situation, but when she comes home and what everybody that served in Vietnam came home to and trying to survive, because it was before they understood even what PTSD was. And so many times she kept hearing again and again, we're not here to help you, we're here to help veterans. And she's like, I am a veteran. And they're like, no, women don't serve in combat. And that just was the time frame that it was in and the ignorance that was rampant back then. And you just kind of follow her life, the ups and downs, and it's beautifully written. And my cats are going nuts in the background. I apologize, but yeah, it got me. I am so glad this won the Goodreads choice. And again, I'm going to have to break my rule. And even though I don't know I could handle rereading it ever, I'm going to have to give it 5 stars because it moved me beyond words. Oof. So yeah, there you go. Heavy, but so beautifully written. Chef's kiss for sure. Then the next category was sci-fi. I unfortunately have read the winner, which was The Ministry of Time. I am obviously not the popular opinion here, but I gave it 2 stars. I thought it was so boring and so repetitive, and it was definitely not my bag. So more power to all of you for loving it. The next category is fantasy, and the winner of this was, of course, TJ Klune's Somewhere Beyond the Sea, the sequel to House on the Cerulean Sea. So let's see if it just holds up as good. So I'm 25% into Somewhere Beyond the Sea, and I love it. I mean, it's so good. It's definitely TJ Klune's voice, and I really appreciate getting to see all the characters again that we saw in the first one, and I don't want to give anything away and spoil the first one for anybody, but it picks up the story with what you would expect, and basically there's some legal stuff going on, and we are starting to see a more, we'll say, aggressive side to Arthur, and so it's interesting. It's really interesting. There's a couple characters that remind me a lot of like the Harry Potter world. In particular, I'm not going to remember her name. The one that had like the pink pillbox hat and was a teacher and was just really Dolores Umbridge. I think it is Dolores Umbridge. Anyway, there's a woman that is on this committee that reminds me of her, and I'm just like, oh, I hate her. I absolutely hate her. So anyway, but I love the kids, and I love the other characters that we got to know in House on the Cerulean Sea, and so I'm excited to continue this. So I'm about 50% into Somewhere Beyond the Sea, and it's really cool to finally get to see Arthur's backstory, to get a little more history on what made Arthur Arthur by the time that we meet him in House on the Cerulean Sea. And we're continuing the relationship that he made in that first book. I don't want to give anything away. The kids are just as adorable as they were in the first one. And we even have a new little kid that they're wanting to kind of integrate into the family. And it's one of those things where you've got to work hard because Arthur's trying to make sure all these kids are, even though they've all got abilities and all look a little unique, that they're not out to use those, we'll say, powers for evil or whatever. And so he's trying so hard, and he is even going before a committee, if you will, trying to say why it is they shouldn't fear the children. And now they're bringing this new guy in, and he unfortunately has had such a rough life already, even as young as he is, that he kind of prides himself on being a monster. And so it's like they're having to teach him and show him love, and the other kids, of course, are pitching into. So you've kind of got two different stories going on here, integrating this new kid and trying to defend Arthur and him being allowed to have these kids. So it's really, really good. It's really sweet. I will say it's not pulling me in as much as the first one did, maybe because the first one was such a unique story. So I'm not bored, but I'm also not as excited to pick it up as I was with the first book. So yeah, that's where we're at. So I finished Somewhere Beyond the Sea, and I've got a buddy this morning. Hi, Rumbletoes. Hi, baby. He doesn't let me get a lot of journaling done before he kind of jumps in and takes over. It was good. It was sweet. I think I'm going to give it a 3-star though, because it has some similar feels to House on the Cerulean Sea, but it just kind of fell short for me. At times it felt like it was just kind of going on and on and on, and so it did kind of get repetitive and boring for me. I hate to say that because I adore TJ Klune. You know, I'm in love with the Wolf Song series. Thanks again, Sam. But yeah, it just didn't quite hit all the buttons that the first one did for me, so it was kind of a letdown for me. But I'm going to give it a high 3-star. I just don't do half stars, or it'd be like a 3.5. But it definitely didn't feel 4-star for me. So that's where I'm going with that. I'm not surprised it won because TJ Klune is a phenomenal writer, and it is a sweet and beloved story. So I'm not surprised it won. I'm not mad that it won, and I'm glad that I got to read it. I love those characters, don't you? Oh my gosh. So moving on, we have the category of YA fantasy, and that one I had also already read. That was Ruthless Vows. I gave it 4 stars. This, of course, is the sequel in the series. And yeah, again, absolutely love it. The writing style is beautiful. If you haven't picked up this duology, you need to. The next category was supposed to be memoir, but the third Gilmore Girl still had a 4-week wait. Then the next one was history and biography, which of course was going to be The Bookshop. That one also had a 4-week wait. And then The God of the Woods, which has been so popular and heard everywhere, was a 10-week wait. So those 3 I am not going to have as a part of this vlog because I don't want to wait 2 more months to get this out to you all. But I hope that you found some new favorites here, or ones that maybe sound interesting that you'd kind of like to pick up. This was so much fun. Let me know below if you want me to do this again for next year, because I did have a good time doing it. It meant a whole lot of crunch time with the reading. So I, of course, wasn't able to review every single book because there's just not enough time and to still make it relevant. But let me know if you did like it, if you found any new favorites, if there's any that you would recommend that I missed completely on this list. Thank you so much. Please like, subscribe, send your friends, and I'll see you all next time.